And before we move to the agenda, I kindly ask you, my colleagues, to introduce yourself briefly to our audience, maybe according to the author sequence. And I'm gonna stop the screen sharing now that we have you in a bigger frame. Maybe Claudio.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for sharing the afternoon with us. My name is Claudio Nig. I'm the Department Chair of Health Science Department at the Institute of Sports Sciences at the University of Bern. And I come through psychology, exercise science, and then for the better part of my career in public health. So an interdisciplinary path myself.
Thanks, Claudio. And then Daniel.
Yes, hello everybody. My name is Daniel Allacher. I'm also here in Bern at the University of Bern at the Institute of Sports Science. I am a lecturer for training science and for sport biology, and my research interest is in sleep and sleep behavior and the connection to sport, and this is per definition an collaboration in itself.
Thanks, Daniel. And then Justin.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm a medical doctor working part-time in research at the University of Basel as a postdoc, and also a resident in my last year at a sports orthopedics facility close to Basel. So I'm quite interdisciplinary myself too.
And then we have Anthony, our guest from St. Louis University.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Tony Breitbach. I am grateful for this opportunity to present with such fine colleagues. I'm an athletic trainer, and but in academics, I'm the program director for athletic training at St. Louis University, and I'm the interim chair for nutrition and dietetics. I'm pretty well. My area of scholarship is interprofessional education and collaborative practice, and I'm so lucky to be here in Zurich. Because I will be representing the American Interprofessional Health Collaborative this week at the Winter Thirst Symposium for Interprofessional.global. So it worked great that I could be presenting to you from the Careum campus in Zurich. So thank you.
So thank you all guys for the introduction. And my name is Gerd Ulrich. I'm a sports scientist, did my PhD in sports medicine. I'm here at Careum campus since 2017. I'm project manager for Zurich Interprofessional Training Ward, and I'm a researcher in interprofessional education and collaboration, and would like to put this sports science more into this topic of interprofessional education and collaboration, also to the field of exercise is medicine. And let's go back to the screen sharing. Just wait a second. And then we are here again. And now let's have a look at the agenda. First of all, we have introduction and the housekeeping. I will add 2 or 3 points to the housekeeping. And we have, I'm thrilled that we have such renowned speakers from Switzerland and an outstanding expert from St. Louis University supporting us. And at first we will have 4 presentations from Claudio, Daniel, and Justin, and also me. And after the presentations, we have the opportunity for a Q&A, for a discussion and questions to the presentation. And this is followed by an input from Anthony Breitbach on interprofessional education and collaborative practice in athletic training and sports medicine in the USA. And then I'm really looking forward to discuss with you, the participants, our topic IPC, IPE in sports science and exercise medicine with focus on Switzerland in breakout sessions. And having said that, before we start with the first presentation, some facts concerning the housekeeping. I think it would be beneficial during the presentations to make sure that your mics or videos are off. And you have the possibility to write comments or questions in the chat. where we maybe have the chance to address in the Q&A, depending on the time we have left. And as we are not so many participants, maybe you have also the possibility in the Q&A to raise your hands via respective Zoom function and to ask your questions. And I would like to highlight first one definition, and this is interprofessional collaboration occurs when two or more individuals from different backgrounds with complementary skills interact to create a shared understanding that none had previously possessed or could have come to on their own. I have two figures here on the right. First, it's multi-professional. I think that's the traditional model in healthcare. You know, the professions, nursing, medicine, physio, occupational therapy, and social work. And the patient is standing beside them, and the professions are working in silos, and they're not so much involved with each other, not so communicating and collaborating. And on the right-hand side, you see this interprofessional model. So first of all, the patient is in the middle, and all the other health professions collaborating, interacting with each other, with the patient in the middle to think about what is the optimal care for the patient. And this multi-professional model is the traditional, it's hierarchical, and we need to switch from this multi-professional to this interprofessional collaborating model. And therefore, interprofessional education, that's the next definition I would like to highlight, occurs when students from two or more professions learn about, from, and with each other to enable effective collaboration and improve health outcomes. And that's depicted in this figure. It's about learning with, from, and about each other to enable the collaboration out in workforce. And I think this figure is pretty insightful. That means that all the professions are working in silos. You have the nurses, the physios, the physicians, and we're gonna ask, how can they work together if they don't learn together? So it's important out in the workforce to collaborate across different professional silos. And the question is, how can they work together if they don't learn together? And that is the thing of interprofessional education, to learn together, to collaborate. Therefore, it is highly recommended that students from different healthcare professions should be educated how to collaborate out in practice. And this is not only on an international basis, but also on a national Swiss basis. And the next thing I would like to draw the attention on is that we have so many challenges in healthcare. You know, we have a demographic change. We have complex treatments according to chronic diseases. We have high costs, and we also have workforce shortage, especially in the ambulatory field, and also in Switzerland or other German-speaking countries. And if we have a closer look at the effects of interprofessional collaboration, then it's stated that interprofessional collaboration, its IPC, is an important and promising means to simultaneously improve patient experience of care, population health, reducing the per capita cost of healthcare, and improving the work life of healthcare workers according to the quadruple aim. You see it depicted on the right. It's about better health outcomes, improved clinician experience, patient experience, and lower costs. And to go into detail, IPC was shown to improve patient safety and patient satisfaction. It was shown to improve healthcare and patient outcomes, improved mutual respect, understanding, and trust between professions involved, and healthcare cost savings, efficient healthcare, and a higher satisfaction of health workforce lower rate of turnover, and saving money respectively. And I wanna show you that IPC plays a vital role in the future of healthcare. It cannot solve every problem of challenges in healthcare. It's not a panacea, but it can add valuable input on those effects just stated on the right, or according to the quadruple aim. And let's have a look at global movement. This IPE, IPC is really a global movement. There's so much action going on there in Nordic countries or USA, Canada. It's interprofessional collaboration since I guess 1950, 1960s, and emerging. But there was a really important framework from the WHO. It's called Framework for Action on Interprofessional Education and Collaborative Practice. And this was like another catalyzer for other nations and for so much actions going on here. You see on the right, many journals emerging, and you see on the left some examples of different networks engaging in interprofessional education and collaboration, e.g. interprofessional global, or there's a European network in UK, Canada, America, Australasian, Nordic, African, Indian. I want to show you that it's national, international perspective. It's a global movement, and we should push this forward also in Switzerland. And having said that, let's have a closer look at Swiss examples. I think there are favorable conditions for interprofessional education in Switzerland. We have so many drivers, like the Federal Office of Public Health. There was a funding program about 3 million Swiss francs supporting 18 research projects. There's a Medical Professions Act rewritten and a new Health Professions Act stating that interprofessional collaboration is needed, and therefore they should be educated also on an interprofessional basis. We have engaged educational institutions, especially University of Applied Sciences with departments of health schools, and the Swiss Academy of Medical Sciences supporting platform interprofessionalism, and Swiss IPE focus on the ambulatory sector, and also we from Careum Foundation very engaged in interprofessional education and collaboration. Just to give you some more examples, there's a directory of models of good practice, and supported by the Federal Office of Public Health. And you see here Switzerland. You also see here much work is going on with interprofessional projects concerning healthcare, education, or other intervention areas like developing evaluation tools. But as you can see, interprofessional projects all spread over whole Switzerland, especially here in Zurich, Basel, and also in Bern. And also in Switzerland, it's moving forward, and it's very nice to see those proceedings concerning IPE and IPC. Now let's move to the fact that it's worthwhile to transfer IPE, IPC also to the area of sports science and exercise medicine. You know, in health and social care, there are so many professions involved: medicine, nursing, social work, occupational therapy, physio, and so on. And now it would be interesting, or it should be stated, that also in other areas of healthcare, quality of care and patient outcomes in sports science and exercise medicine could benefit also here from collaboration between various healthcare providers. So you see, there are many providers involved, like sports exercise scientists, sports therapists, athletic trainers, physical therapists, physicians. The team of healthcare providers is so huge. And as I stated already, the patient outcomes could benefit also here from collaboration between those providers. But the data are very, very rare on this area. So what I like to address is that you need to go away from this traditional multi-professional hierarchical model of healthcare to this interprofessional model of healthcare, and to add, you can see it here, sports scientists, exercise scientists, and to add this ideas on IPC, IPE on exercise is medicine. And to finish this presentation, I would like to highlight two proceedings in Switzerland. There was a report on exercise as therapy from the ZHAW, commissioned by the Federal Office of Public Health. And also there was the recommendation to found exercise as medicine in Switzerland, and that specific competencies and roles of different professions should be clarified and improved in interprofessional initiatives. And another example is again from the Federal Office of Public Health concerning health promotion in healthcare, that education programs of health professions in the areas of health promotion should be complemented with interprofessional collaboration. So there are first important steps on pushing this IPE, IPC forward in sports and exercise medicine. To conclude, I would like to highlight again that interprofessional education involving health and social care professionals, students and practitioners from other healthcare professions is becoming more common globally and nationally. And like in other fields of healthcare, patient outcomes in the field of sports science, exercise medicine could benefit from collaboration between various healthcare providers. And the question is also for today from our webinar of food for thoughts for the future of healthcare in Switzerland. How can we add more IPE, IPC in sports science and exercise medicine in Switzerland? So I think the framing conditions are very favorable, and we need to talk about adding this value on sports science and exercise medicine. And thanks for your attention. Just as a reminder, maybe we have after the first presentation, Q&A, and then you can address your questions on us. And now I would like to hand over to my colleague Claudio, and he dives into this topic of our webinar and also to the question how we define members on the team.
Great. Great setup, Gert, with this topic area. And I would like to take a little bit of a different approach and say we need to really open our lens, widen our lens. I'm coming at this on a preventive medicine side of things, looking at exercise as medicine. So it's not about whether we could come to a team of existing health professionals and bring sport in, but really what can all these different pieces bring to exercise medicine or sports science? In other words, inviting everybody in and allowing us to become more interprofessional. So, well, let's have a look. When we look at exercise or physical activity, I'm going to be talking about very general. Let's look at the outcomes. Already some of these were touched upon. You know, we need a cardiologist to understand the mechanisms. We need to look at people in strength conditioning, strength training. We need to look at specialists with bone health, especially as we're developing in age, teenagers, especially teenage girls, and long-term prevention of osteoporosis. Also looking at the physical activity outcomes in older adults with brittle bones, for example. Physical activity also has an impact on brain health, and expertise in brain health can lead us into what type, what intensity, and how long physical activity may need to be done in order to optimize certain parts of the brain. Certainly right now, we have the immune system is a very big topic with COVID, and physical activity has a big effect on the immune system, a very significant effect for dealing with COVID, both on the prevention and the treatment side. Of course, immunologists, etc., infectious disease and chronic disease specialists would need to be in the picture. We go beyond these physiological outcomes. On the cognitive side, when we look in terms of focus, attention, time on task, all these things, that has impacts on the economy in businesses, effectiveness, productivity, also in schools, paying attention to your teacher or professors. Looking at the social aspect of things, physical activity, doing physical activity can build up network, can build up social wealth, and in terms of social capital, and in terms of growing old, as an example, one of the indicators of successful aging is if one has a confidant. On the other side, on the psychological side, mood is also an area where physical activity is receiving a lot of attention these days, and it has a very profound effect on positive mood, and thus looking at experts in terms of measurement, that we can look at momentary assessment and ecological assessments in real life, in real time. That's type of expertise would also be required to look at, to get a better picture of physical activity outcomes. We also look at other things like anxiety, stress, and depression. So on the psychological and psychiatric side, physical activity has a big role to play in prevention and in treatment. So we can see that we already have a wide breadth of expertise that's required just to explain and just to help understand and to really maximize or optimize the outcomes of physical activity. Take a quick breath, sit up straight, stretch a little bit, because we are sitting again, so we should take a break in sitting while we talk about physical activity. The other part that I want to talk about is on the other side. What leads to physical activity? What kind of expertise is needed to be present here? And here I'm taking a settings approach for childhood physical activity promotion as an example. We could certainly do this with worksite wellness. We could do this with special populations. We could do this with several other forms of areas of issues that we want to address. But here in the childhood physical activity side, we need to talk to the education system, or the education system needs to talk to us. In other words, we need to bring that expertise in. What is the structure? What is the ability of the expert of the education system to allow and promote physical activity? it does not only have to be physical education classes, as we show here. Another setting that is needed is nature, out in parks, out in forests. Other people call this green space and blue space if you include the water areas also. These, of course, the Department of Parks and Recreation, experts in how to have human interaction with nature would be well welcomed, and I think we'll have a greater benefit when we combine physical activity with green than either one alone. There is also, of course, the playground environment for children. This is where some kids do get some activity. The design, the environment design, where kids hang out. So we need to start to think about including architects, need to think about including design individuals to see how can we engineer physical activity into areas where children hang out. I ask you all to maybe go out to a playground over the week and have a look and count how many of the kids are actually being active, and you'll be surprised that not all playgrounds are made for activity. Other settings to think about, of course, sports. We need to think about experts, including experts, coaches, managers, and team as well as individual sports, because what you may have is you may have a practice or an activity going on where one person, say, kicks a ball and the other 10 people watch. In terms of physical activity, not very conducive. Even though everybody thinks that they're active, the majority may not be. So having experts in active training and active physical education. We also need to think about our own backyard. Where can individuals get activity? What can people do, especially during COVID times, but this is really expanded to all of our time. So we need to think about experts in leisure, experts in home activities, and we need to think about designing the homes, designing the buildings with gardens, with paths, with access. Maybe make the stairs your main way to get up and down, and move the elevator to the side or the escalators to the side instead of the other way around. And the other thing that I would also like to think about with those last pictures is the enjoyment factor. We have to think about physical activity as something that people want to do. Make it fun. So there we need to have the behavioral scientists at the table, who can think about how can we gamify physical activity? How can we include the right technologies and integrate what, in this case, children already do to promote physical activity? There we may need to talk to video game designers. We may need to talk to other experts in terms of, or invite them to our table in terms of social interaction. So developmental specialists, what is age appropriate? So let me take you through this model where you can see how much different areas need to be represented.
Claudio, 2 minutes to go.
Perfect. So who needs to be at the table? Epidemiologists to describe who is the group that we're in. We need to know what is in the context and in the community, because that will then, with our psychologists and our theorists, work in building individual intention to go for a walk. And that is the behaviorist that is looking at this. The outcomes, of course, we've already discussed, and ultimately the positive quality of life. Here, we may need to broaden our view of our outcomes, as I will show. But not only this on the individual track, but we also need to think broader. We need to open our lens. We need to have the people who make the policies. So advocacy organizations, community organizations that have something to gain for making more walkable communities, because they interact obviously with the program activities that are offered, but they also change the system or the community itself, which then allows the community to build intention, and it becomes a community where this is part of their culture, that they want to have active people. Think about Boulder, Colorado. Is it an active city because it has such a beautiful environment in the Rockies? Or is it because active people come there and they make their city an active city? As I just explained, individual and civic intention influence each other. So we're looking at, as I already said, city planners, architects to influence the land use. Looking at facilities and settings. So that's where the organizations come in. And the reinforcements, this is where the healthcare agencies come in. How can we incentivize, or how can we motivate the health system to reward people for being active and healthy? These all systems structural changes are looking at walkable communities. And here we have, again, expertise in public health that should be sitting at the table. And what happens when you have a walkable community, and as I touched upon before, you can see the added benefits of a walkable community that go way beyond health status and quality of life of individuals. And that's a whole other area of expertise. So more of the sociology and environmentalist perspective. And this all needs to be looked at in a cultural, anthropological trends and context. So we need to include the broader understanding of what culture are we in? Where is the school in the city? Where's the city within a province or a country? So I consider these 6 main areas as paramount to include specialists in when we look at interprofessional training and education. Because, as we said at the beginning, is exercise medicine? If it would be, it might be easier. So it's not. So let us all put our heads together. Let us all open our lens and bring all these broad range of individuals to the table.
Okay, so thank you, Gerd. I know Gerd for a long time, and when he first came to me and talked about this interprofessional collaboration, I said, oh, Gerd, this is something I would really need to know, because I have a field of interest, sport and sleep, where I could use your knowledge. So I'm more the naive person probably in this round, who has more questions than answers, questions on how we can do a interprofessional collaboration when you have a good idea where you think that sport might be a very good thing to help people with sleep problems, for example. But where is my background actually? So I have to get here. My background is on sport and sleep in general. So I'm more the experimental guy who is loving it to be in the lab and do some weird experiments with a lot of measurements. I'm not in the healthcare part. Where you are probably are in. So we do things like, okay, how sleep is, for example, adding to your recovery processes when you do training sessions like strength training. And therefore we need a lot of measures to see if sleep is really doing something with your recovery processes during the night and where those processes are located. So that's just to say I'm more in research interested or in basic research than in healthcare. But from the work with sport and sleep and the intersection between in sport and sleep, there's one field popping up which is quite dramatic if you look at the pure numbers, and it's about sleep problems. So if you talk to sleep medical people, we know that there are several of different sleep problems which can be diagnosed, and one of the biggest problems is insomnia. Next to other things like restless legs or obstructive sleep disorders, we have those problems where people have problems to fall asleep or to maintain their sleep. But this is quite a big problem. If you look at those numbers, they are quite ranging from dramatic numbers like every second person is currently having symptoms of insomnia, down to maybe 10% where we know that they have a diagnosis on their sleep problems from a sleep doctor. So insomnia is a real problem in sleep medicine or in our health system in general. And you can see that also for Switzerland. If you check this slide here, you can see that sleep is, well, where I have my pointer. Well, anyway, sleep is under the top 5 of problems in Switzerland for 2012. Maybe the number is now even growing. And we have a lot of sport therapy for back issue, for problems with your back or with your posture and with other muscles, but we don't really have good solutions to encounter sleep problems. So what do we have in a classical way? We have the typical treatment as a pharmacotherapy. So people who experience sleep problems, usually they went to their doctor and they get a sleeping pill. But sleeping pills are not a good solution to fight against sleep problems. They are only for the short-term use. They have the risk of dependency. Well, this field is also growing, and we get new sleep medication which might have better prognostics, but in general, sleep pills are just not a good way to solve those huge number of people with sleep problems. We have better, cleverer solutions like the cognitive behavioral therapy, which is a very complex thing, where you have a combination of therapy and education on sleep hygiene, on explaining the sleep habits in yourself, and then you have behavioral elements where you do things like sleep restriction or stimulus control, which works very good, and it's very effective and has a long-term effect for the patients with sleep problems. But we have the problem that we have not enough treatment possibilities for all the patients in the population. So there's a lack of trained therapists, and it's of course quite more expensive. So now sport is coming in, because that's when I first started to work on sport and sleep. Is one of the obvious things you know from sport. When you do sport, usually you have a very nice sleep in the next night. And science knows that already. So this is a very old paper from Youngstead, and he already summed up what are the positive effects on sleep, of exercise on sleep. And the starting sentence is, of course, historically, perhaps no daytime behavior has been more closely associated with better sleep than exercise. So it's simple, just do exercise during the day. And then you have those recovery needs in your body, and this will help you to promote your sleep. So very easy. So why isn't nobody in sleep medicine discovering this easy solution, this easy way? Maybe there is not enough research. So we set up our own research, and we did a nice controlled intervention study over 6 weeks, where we set up a physical therapy intervention or sport activity therapy with Nordic walking. And we combined it. We thought, put everything together, which is very good, with sleep education. And after 6 weeks, we had very nice effects with the comparison to the waiting list control group. They dropped from those scores, which are very well known in sleep science, the PSQI score, for example, or the SFB. And here a drop is good for your sleep. If it's going down to 5, you have normal sleep. But in our patient group, it dropped rather dramatic. And it has also a long time effect. Over 3 months later, the follow-up still showed very nice effects. And also the SFB, where the sleep quality, the higher, the better. So now we have promising results, not only from our research, but from a lot of more researchers. And we could say, well, physical activity, maybe in combination with those sleep hygiene education protocols, might be a potential alternative to a pharmacological treatment for younger and older adults. But how can we bring this now into the field? Well, you saw the study was published 2011, and since then our program is lying in the drawer. Well, I tried to build up collaborative networks, and I was kind of successful. And I just want to show you one more slide, because this week on Thursday, we have this recognition also from sleep medicine here at the University of Bern, where we have a very strong sleep medicine department. With Claudio Bassetti, and they now recognize that sport might be very important for sleep, but not really in therapy for insomniac patients. It's more that we now shift a little bit our focus on professional sport, and sleep is also there a very interesting topic. And now we have a workshop where we talk about sleep problems in professional sport. But well, we will see how the ideas will develop, and maybe the sport therapy idea about sleep problems will come back, and we can do something for the future. So thank you for your attention. That was my small input on this topic from the workshop.
So dear colleagues, I'm delighted to be here. And in the next few minutes, I would like to share with you a few facts regarding the role played by exercise scientists in the Australian and Swiss healthcare system. This is the result of a review we recently did, and I saw that Ilaria joined us today. She's one of the co-author of the paper. Why is it not working? Okay, so first, to set the stage, I would like to share 3 points with you. The first one is, as you know, there is a growing burden related to non-communicable diseases in the world. Fortunately, regular physical activity can reduce both mortality and morbidity. And we recently observed an increasing number of articles really related to sports and exercise physiologists working in healthcare. And most of these paper, or at least a lot of these paper, came from Australia. So what we did was to conduct a narrative review on the role played by exercise scientists in both countries. And for that, we define exercise scientists as university graduates trained in sports and exercise science. And we decided to review 3 points. The first was the healthcare system itself. Then we look at the education of exercise scientists in both countries. And in a third time, we looked at the way they are integrated in their respective healthcare system. So first, I would like to share with you these numbers regarding the healthcare system of Australia and Switzerland. I might use my pointer here. Yes, so Australia has about 3 times more inhabitants than Switzerland does, but the GDP of Switzerland is about twice as high as the one of Australia. And there is a similar trend for healthcare expenditure per capita. If we look at the number of physicians per 1,000 inhabitants, Australia has more of it, but we do have here in Switzerland more hospital beds per 1,000 inhabitants. The life expectancy is approximately similar in both countries. And interestingly, Australia has more non-communicable diseases and a higher prevalence of both physical inactivity and physical inactivity related death. Most of you probably know that we don't have a universal public health insurance in Switzerland, but that will be the case of Australia. So now moving on to the education system, there is really no major differences between both countries at a university level. In both countries, it's possible to obtain a bachelor, a master, or a PhD degrees. And in both countries, it's possible to do a diploma of advanced studies. So the difference is not here. However, when we look at the way how exercise scientists are integrated in both countries, we do see major differences. And here I would like to spend a few minutes on these slides. So first, and that's quite important, in Australia, they have a profession dedicated for exercise scientists, which is recognized by both the government and health insurances. And this profession is called Accredited Exercise Physiologist, abbreviated AEP. Unfortunately, that's not the case in Switzerland. This profession is recognized by health insurances, meaning that the therapies, the exercise intervention that these people are delivering is covered by the health insurance, which is not the case in Switzerland either. However, and this is quite important to note, the health insurance in Australia, Medicare, is going to cover only up to 5 sessions a year. And this does not apply only to exercise scientists, but also to other allied health professions like physiotherapists, podiatrists, etc. So it's really a very few amount of sessions. In comparison, in Switzerland, you can basically prescribe physiotherapy forever as long as it is medically justified. Now, if we look at the number of exercise scientists working in healthcare, it's around 60% in Australia and only around 4 to 5% in Switzerland. And the last major difference is the professional organization. In Australia, you have one main body called Exercise and Sports Science Australia, ESSA. And in Switzerland, we have the SGS for 4S. And we also have a German-speaking association for exercise scientists and a French-speaking association for exercise scientists. So this might be one of the reasons why it's less efficient in Switzerland. So how to become an accredited exercise physiologist in Australia? First, they have to fulfill the exercise science standards and to fulfill the standards for an accredited exercise physiologist. If you follow a 4-year bachelor training accredited by the ESSA, you're going to fulfill these both criteria. After your training at university, you will have to gain 500 hours of practical experience, and then you can apply for this job title. If we now look at the situation in Switzerland, It's the integration of exercise scientists in the healthcare system is unfortunately very limited, mostly project-based, like the project PAPA, which is a project in Lausanne where MDs can refer patients to an exercise scientist, or the project PASTEC, where exercise scientists are delivering exercise intervention to children with cancer. We also have exercise scientists working in rehab setting like Diafit, which is for diabetic patients, or the Lungenliga Ligue Pulmonaire, which is for patients with pulmonary diseases, and obviously rehab programs for heart issues. So to summarize, in Australia, the strengths are they do have a profession, a job for exercise scientists, and their services are covered by health insurances. The weakness is it's only a very limited number of sessions which are covered, as I said, 5 a year. And as a consequence, there is a low referral rate from MD to accredited exercise physiologists. The opportunities that we saw for Australia is clearly to extend this number to a higher number of sessions, and maybe to use the fact that Brisbane is going to host the Olympic Games in 2033. The threats are a short-term vision regarding healthcare costs, because obviously, if you're going to accept if you are going to cover a higher number of sessions a year, the costs are going to increase in a short time, but probably in a more longer term, you would achieve a better population health and therefore reduce the cost. Looking at Switzerland, we have the strength is the formally unlimited coverage of services provided by allies health profession. As I said, you can do physiotherapy almost forever as long as it is medically justified. The weakness is that we don't have a profession for these people. And because we don't have a profession for these people, the healthcare insurances are not paying for their services. And therefore, the patients just don't go to these people. The opportunities that we saw was the current project of the Federal Office of Public Health to develop the concept of exercise is medicine. And I saw that Antoine Bonvin is taking part today, so he might provide us some new information regarding this project. And the threats are similar in Switzerland as in Australia, meaning having a short-term vision of healthcare. Yeah, so I think that will be what I wanted to share with you today.
Really looking forward to have the Q&A right now. We have 5 or 6 minutes and the possibility to address questions on the previous speakers. So the stage is open for everybody, and you can put your questions in the chat or can raise your hand and join the Q&A and address your questions on us. Antoine, you can open your mic. Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you for all this presentation, and I wanted just to answer to the Justin question about what we are currently doing in the Federal Office of Public Health. As he told, on the part of the Federal Office, we are currently carrying out an analysis at national level, first of all, in order to determine what training studies and also professional figures exist to anchor AIM in Switzerland. And the focus of this mandate is on competence profiles, and to bring all these actors together for common reflection in this field. So that's a new activity we are leading for since this year. And the idea is to create a structure or a network. We are still thinking about it, of national actors to really strengthen this EIM in Switzerland. So that was just to explain what he just asked me.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for this presentation.
Thank
if you
you.
have questions, I'm there for it.
Thank you, Antoine, for these insights and current inputs. So are there any further questions or inputs or comments from the audience? Well, Tony, do you have questions? I got several. If you want to go ahead with questions on us in Switzerland.
Yeah, what I found that this was a very great, had excellent connection between the different presentations. I think, you know, and I think it's important to realize that we can communicate the value of inclusion of a wider range of professions. And then I think Justin pulled it together with, you know, kind of the practicalities of making it happen. And I think I'm looking forward to my part of the presentation. So the reality of the implementation of some of these ideas, what do people in the panel or even in the audience feel about what can be our hook? What can be our the thing that, you know, turns policymakers into a position where they can start rewarding? Because I think that's really one of the things that's very powerful around, you know, setting policy changes, is really finding that story, finding that hook, you know, that those patients' lives can be improved, those types of things like that, or people's lives can be improved. What do people think about that? Like, what would be a hook that we could use as we try to get policy impacted?
Well, Claudia, you told about really a wide area of focus, not only concerning healthcare, but also experts in activities, in social intervention, architects, city planners. Do you have concrete ideas how to bring all those people together? You know, he's Antoine from Federal Office of Public Health. What are your concrete ideas, maybe pushing this forward, this really wide field that you were presenting us?
Yeah, that's a great question. And Tony, to your question, how do we bring everyone to the table, might be on the one part, showing that everyone has a stake in this, showing that everybody can contribute, but also can benefit. So a return on investment type approach, and that can be anything from broader use, integration of new concepts, building of integrated theoretical models, all those things where people have a role to play, so that they're an active ingredient in solving the problem or getting people more active. Gert, I think your piece specifically in a course-based kind of thing, I think it's up to the lecturer, up to the professor or so on, to start reaching out, to make the connections and to bring these people in. And just in a very small way, I have someone from Novartis in our health behavior and physical activity promotion course, where they talk about technology, right? And I have someone from Ireland that is talking to us about community engagement. And so bringing in the people so that the students actually see that it's not just one person that has all the knowledge up in the front of the room, but it's rather you need to go to the right people to get the right answers. which I think is an important part on the education, is to be able to ask not only the right question, but ask the right people to answer those questions. So that's where I see, where we have in terms of educational curriculum, where you build in practicum in sports science that needs to be outside of sports science, for those kind of things, or have components of them. One could be a multiple component type of thesis or final project, or multiple component practicum, where they have to go into a hospital setting, go into some kind of maybe community type setting, and go into some policy making setting, that they can get some of their hands dirty, so to speak, in different areas. That's I think that is also a very important piece to learn. What you can get from these different areas is you have to play with some of their toys. And in terms of city planning, geographic information system alone, that mapping tool is very powerful, but you're not going to get that in a exercise phys course, for example.
And one of the things I would want to build on from what you said, Claudio, was not only do you have to engage with the people that provide the expertise in the area, that you need to get them together so that they can come up with ideas that they didn't even think, to problems they didn't even think existed. And I think that's really, really important. That's where the innovation comes from. I was thinking in terms, while you were talking, I was thinking about how about a community develops a recreation center, puts funding behind a recreation center, but they only bring in maybe architects and some exercise administration. How about you bring in psychologists that talk about what kind of center can we design that people will use, right? How can we incorporate prevention of health issues? How can we engage with the medical community to be a bigger part of this, using that exercise as medicine approach? How can architects better understand these factors as they design these facilities? I think that was really an interesting idea.
Well, great view on it, and I would like to take the words from Claudio, addressing right persons, and there is Anthony, Anthony for us, and I'm so happy that he's here and supporting us with this topic. Well, thanks Claudio, thanks Justin, thanks Daniel. Really looking forward what's happening also. Daniel with the collaboration network on sleep medicine. Justin, really looking forward. What's happening, exercise is medicine, to push this topic forward, also concerning IPE. And thanks Claudio for this very wide lens and view on it. And really looking forward now to Anthony to get his insights into interprofessional education collaboration and experiences from USA. So thanks Anthony, and the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. And building off of what we talked about earlier, I think what I would like to do is I would like to give you some ideas on how you can build some momentum around incorporating a wider set of individuals, because we kind of went through that with athletic training in the United States. I want to start off by telling my story. So I've worked as an athletic trainer for 22 years. The last 7 of which I was the head athletic trainer at St. Louis University. The United States has a unique kind of athletic organization where a lot of it is based around universities and high schools and secondary schools. So we have a unique kind of relationship with our schools. So and then what happened is that I moved over to finish my PhD while I was the head athletic trainer, and moved over to start a new athletic training education program. But my first year, I did not have any students yet. We were still recruiting students into the program. I was building the curriculum. And so I was pressed into action by, this is Irma Rubling, who was the director of our IPE program at the time. She said, we need faculty resources. I'm going to just have you teach in all the classes. I'm like, and then I started teaching classes and I'm like, you know, this is kind of the way I practice healthcare, this interprofessional collaboration, my whole career. My athletic training room was essentially a patient-centered medical home. You know, the athletes relied on us for everything, to evaluate and triage problems, manage them on site if we could. And then we also had a group of individuals that would work with us on a team. Then I got a chance to become this on the executive committee for the education for the National Athletic Trainers Association. And I was able to get some input, and I'll be talking about that in a little bit. I also am involved with the Association of Schools Advancing Health Professions, the Interprofessional Education Collaborative. I got to really collaborate with a pretty legendary who's now passed away, Scott Reeves. And this is actually us when we presented at, he was the editor of the Journal of Interprofessional Care. And this is when we presented together, Altogether Better Health in Oxford several years ago. I'm also on the American Interprofessional Collaborative. And that's why I am fortunate to be here. I'm representing them at the Interprofessional.global Winter Symposium. And then I do some consulting with a colleague of mine, a dietetics colleague, Katie Elliott. We have a kind of a little side thing called Be Collaborative. So let's get to the issue. So one of the issues that we have is in the professionals that take care of athletes are widely diverse from country to country. So these are our definitions in the United States. But you know, if you go to Canada, it's different. They're athletic therapists, kinesiotherapists. If you go to the UK, it's sport rehabilitation therapists. You have sports and exercise therapists. You have all kinds of different. You know, go to South Africa, you have biokineticists, those types of things like that. So a wide variety, and you know, a medical doctor is pretty universal, but in sports medicine and sports science, it's not that universal. In the United States, as you see, we have a very primary care focus to our job. We were involved with prevention and promotion, and then all the things that are involved with kind of health and injury care. And then we also have a large administration, advocacy, professional responsibility component to what we do. So why interprofessional collaborative practice for athletic trainers? Why does it matter? We're good at it. We work collaboratively. So for example, this picture that I'm showing you, this is at one of our NCAA tournament in St. Louis. And in this picture, we have a physical therapist, we have myself, who's an athletic trainer, we have a dentist, we have a orthopedic surgeon, a primary care physician, and 3 students. And so, and athletics really requires that team approach. They're not satisfied with one person kind of doing all the healthcare. They want to put their key asset, which is their athletes, in the hands of a team of individuals that can help make them better. So how can we take these skills that we've identified and developed as working in athletics and apply them across the healthcare team? However, many sports scientists, athletic trainers, those types of things aren't included in these interprofessional education initiatives as they are developed in colleges of health professions and medical schools and those types of things. So often we're not at the table. And how can we find our way to get to the table? In the United States, the American Medical Association made a statement in 1998 that there needs to be an athletic medicine unit. However, this without a strong commitment behind it, this is basically a statement. You know, we're still probably between 50 and 75% of the high schools in the United States that even have an athletic trainer. You know, there needs to be that commitment that follows the statements, which is really, really important. I talked earlier about the future directions in AT education document. I was really largely responsible for helping develop the recommendation number 3, which is interprofessional education and should be a required component in athletic training education programs. And then part of that is that we were asked to kind of develop a strategic process in implementation of those recommendations. As a part of that, we found that many people did not know about interprofessional education in our field because they largely weren't involved in those initiatives as they were being developed. So I was able to put together a group of 23 individuals. I really focused on having a big tent, getting a lot of different perspectives, and developed this white paper to help, number one, inform our profession, identify the key terminology, the best evidence, and all of those types of things. To inform academic institutions, academic units, and other professions about what athletic trainers bring to the table. To inform educators and clinicians about the importance of interprofessional collaboration in clinical practice, and then inform our accrediting body, the CADE, about providing evidence for inclusion of these into the accreditation standards. And I'm happy to announce that in the new 2020 standards, interprofessional education is in those standards. So pretty happy about that. I also did a survey of program directors, and this is really identifying this need. We surveyed a group of them in 2012, and then in 2015 we surveyed the same group again. It was not a study where we could code to the specific institutions. It was really more of dipping into the same pool of subjects. And in it, we found that from 2012 to 2015, there was a substantial increase in interprofessional education and athletic training education programs. However, at 37%, that was not a good number yet, but we were happy about the improvement, and we're really happy that they're in the new standards, which will require 100% of the programs to have interprofessional education. One of the things I talked about Scott Reeves earlier, I worked with Simon Fletcher. We did a scoping review of interprofessional collaboration in sports medicine, and what we looked at was what are the factors that affect the way professionals collaborate together in a sporting context? And how have these factors been promoted or inhibited in interprofessional collaboration? So as we move forward, these were kind of how we developed our sources. And the themes we developed are different things in sport that might be different in the regular healthcare system, and things about professionalization. So the team physician or the team therapist, those types of things like that are something that people strive for. We still have the same professional dominances and hierarchies, status imbalances that we have. There's some interprofessional negotiation. I think in terms of, you have to work between other professions and decide, who's kind of takes the lead on certain issues, those types of things. Confidentiality, things that happen in athletics from a patient confidentiality standpoint really don't work very well in the regular healthcare system, where we really work hard to protect our patients' rights and privileges. And then compromising competition. There's things like competition where, in the United States, if they get a different health system to sponsor an athletic team, they'll change all of their doctors. That happened in several cities where they negotiated a sponsorship contract with another health system, and all of those doctors and therapists and athletic trainers that work with the team were transitioned to a different group based on this sponsorship paradigm. Another thing, and this brings us to the work that Gert and I did. We're really, I just want to tell everyone, I'm really happy to actually get to see Gert in person. We've been working together for 2 years, and it's all been on Zoom, and it's been great spending the day in Zurich and at the Careum Foundation, and it's great to see him in person. We're really proud of this scholarship. I could honestly say it's probably the only one that really focused on a global look at how professions collaborate in sports science and sports medicine. And how we found is that we really were able to lump our groups into 3 regions based on the respondents. So, the USA, Canada, and then Europe, we kind of lumped together. And there was a few other countries that were outside of Europe or nearby that we kind of lumped in with the Europe group. But we found that in the United States, the lion's share of the professions that answered the survey were athletic trainers and physiotherapists. In Canada, it was athletic therapists and kinesiotherapists. And then athletic trainers, we use that term kind of loosely in the in Europe, depending on the country. Whoever kind of aligns themselves with the same role, we included them in the athletic trainer group. And then we looked at how they interact with other professions. And I think in we identified the different professions that they interact with most, but then we identified how many professions they interact with. So as you can see in Europe, there's a little less professional interaction, but a lot of times maybe that might be due to the fact that there's not a lot of clearly defined professions that work with sports primarily and exclusively from country to country. And then, but it's all pretty similar. But if you can see in Europe, there's a much more diverse group of sports scientists, exercise physiologists, human performance, strength and conditioning coaches, those types of things like that. So then what I want to do is I would like to kind of help you with an example on how we embedded athletic trainers into an existing interprofessional education activity, especially with some partners that don't normally bend over backwards to include us at the table. So I think this is this is a post-baccalaureate interprofessional education program that we have at St. Louis University. Each student will go through 6 team sessions with a faculty facilitator, and each of those sessions all share a common activity during the session. These are mapped to our APEC competencies, and we really try to make these applied sessions that have some relationship to their experience, critical reflection, and application. So, however, from 2013 to 14, the student evaluation. So there's about 600 students in the interprofessional team seminar from post-baccalaureate health professions such as medicine, in the United States, physical therapy, occupational therapy, pharmacy, nursing, social work, and other types of things. But they were in their course evaluations, they were saying that these didn't feel like real patient cases. They were more like a games where they were getting together and like pretending on cases. And then at the same time, I was program director for the Master of Athletic Training program. I was teaching in the IPE curriculum, and I went to our IPE director and I said, you know what, we're a graduate program, but we're not included in the IPTS curriculum, and what can we do to get involved? And so he brought this idea of that we needed something more real for them, and so we developed these. We took kind of the reins of one of the 6 sessions. Instead of having our students participate in all 6, our students took a leadership role in one of the 6, applying it to an athletic setting, and this is what we came up with.
Only 1 or 2 minutes to go.
Sure. Yeah, I'm near the end. Thank you. And then so, oh, I'm sorry, I went the wrong way. There we go. Okay, I don't know why those slides were still in there. So anyway, the case. So we developed this case around Tommy Mallon. There was a video done by this website of a high school student that plays lacrosse and had a catastrophic injury on the pitch, on the field. And they really do a nice job in this. And you can go to this injuredathletes.org to find it, of walking through the entire case, really showing the patient's view, really showing some of the people around its view, the mother, the coaches, people that a physician actually came out of the stands to try to lend his advice, but the athletic trainer really stood behind her decision to transport him via emergency medical services. And then they talked about what happened to him when he went to the ER. They thought he was going into the X-ray and it was no problem. And then it turns out they had a C1 fracture. As we talked about how that dynamic, and then we also built a case around this that included how his rehab would potentially go, all those types of things. So we talked about the importance of teamwork across transitions of care, because as we know, those transitions of care really, those are where some of the medical errors happen, and it's really, really important. We also talked about the impact on the family. We also talked about, the possibility for opioid addiction post-surgically, all those types of things like that brought a lot of our different professions in. And then each of our students participated in seminar number 4 on this. And then all the IPTS students, the other thing that was really neat is that because they have so many students, they had to do it 3 weeks in a row. So the IP director actually did a quality improvement project in the debriefing after session 1 with the students. And that was really a great way to introduce quality improvement with our students in a real world sense. So the IPTS students, which are the non-AT students, really cited the increased understanding of the role of the AT students, the importance of communication, insight into essential information, and new appreciation for the mental health needs of a patient and family dealing with traumatic injuries. Once again, our AT students felt a whole new level of confidence in their skills and their ability to advocate for their patients. And then really they got to live out a quality improvement process, which is really important. This is a really cool word cloud. As you can see, the IPTS, because there were 600 students, the letters are much thicker, but a lot of the same words are used between the AT students and the students in IPTS. And then these are a couple quotes. I feel like an AT student said, I feel like doing this presentation was a confidence boost and a good reminder that I've practiced and prepared for events like this over and over again. And then, I was surprised to learn that ATs are a large player in the team. I think those kind of things are important. So, that activity showed an improved appreciation of the roles and responsibilities, and then appreciation of the complexity. You can utilize the complexity of these activities, especially in an athletic setting, to really elevate interprofessional education programs. So here's my information. We do have that Interprofessional Education and Practice Interest Group. Please follow us on Twitter. You can always join us on LinkedIn. You're willing to go there.
So thank you very much for your participation, and thanks for your insights and discussions. We didn't have a closer look now at the Padlet, but I think it was good to have a discussion right now, also in the breakout rooms, and maybe to make some more connections also concerning the interprofessional network, the existing in Switzerland, and to make these connections not only to sports science and exercise medicine, just as Claudio also suggested, to widen the lens, to have a wider look on this topic. So to come to an end, so thank you very much for your participation, and thanks to the speakers, Claudio, Daniel, Anthony, Justin. And thank you so much. And we should use these positive drivers that are already existing, also learn from other countries and experience and strategies to push interdisciplinary collaboration, as well as IPC and IPE in sports science and other fields and further fields, exercise medicine, forward. Well, we hope you enjoyed our webinar. You can reach out to us for more information. And so grateful that my colleagues collaborated in this webinar. So thank you very much. And thanks to all of you for your keen interest in this topic. And from my side, thanks, stay safe and well, and have a nice evening, and goodbye. Thank you very much for participating.
Thanks, everyone.